No, I think about him every day. He was in his 20s and had drug problems. I put him in rehab so many times, and every time he'd be doing great, but then it would all go back to normal. 100 things would go through your mind. There was nothing worse than losing a child. Rick Harrison has been a familiar face to reality TV viewers for a long time. Since Pawn Stars started in 2009, viewers have grown to know the Harrison and his family, but behind the success of the famous gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, Rick's personal story is full of heartbreaking struggles, from terrible family losses to personal and professional problems. His journey has been anything but smooth. Join us as we tell you the real-life story of Rick Harrison from Pawn Stars. Rick may be living a sweet life now, but that wasn't always the case. He was born on March 22, 1965 in Lexington, Kentucky, North Carolina. Rick was 8 years old when he was told he had epilepsy. His condition had a big effect on his childhood, especially his social life and schoolwork. Seizures happened all the time, which made him feel alone with other kids who didn't understand his disorder. His condition was also hard on his family because it wasn't always easy to know what would happen. He was often bedridden for long periods of time, which made him love reading even more. This love of history and learning became a central part of his life. He talked about interesting things that people brought into his shop and how his condition got better as he got older, but he still talks about how it changed him as a person in interviews. Rick has used his story to bring attention to epilepsy and try to clear up misconceptions and reduce stigma. He uses himself as an example of how people with epilepsy can live successful lives with the right care and support. His public talks have helped make the disorder more visible. A big tragedy happened to Rick early in life when his sister Sherry died. Because he was young, he didn't fully understand the loss his family had been through. Sherry was born in 1960 and was the first child of Richard and Joanne Harrison. At that time, medical knowledge and resources for treating congenital heart defects and other health problems associated with Down syndrome were not nearly as advanced as they are now. Sherry had serious health problems from birth, and her weak health made her very likely to have life-threatening complications. To make sure she got the best medical care, Richard re-enlisted in the Navy to get medical benefits for her. This was to make sure she got the best treatments and support she needed. Rick was born almost 4 years after Sherry in 1963, and by the time he was old enough to remember her, she had already died. Sherry died in 1967 at the age of 6, leaving a deep void in the Harrison family. Rick hasn't talked much about his sister Sherry's death, but the effect of her death was clear. He never got to know her, which is something he has thought about his whole life, even though he was too young to remember her. Rick also felt the grief that hung over his parents. As he got older, he realized how much Sherry's death affected his father, Richard, who often talked about her with great love and sorrow for Rick. Rick often kept Sherry's death a secret because he thought it was terrible. Something that happened in Rick's family left an emotional scar that followed him throughout his upbringing. When Rick was a teenager, his family moved to San Diego, California. Before that, Rick didn't have a close relationship with his father. In fact, Rick has always been honest about how strict his father was. Growing up with a Navy veteran as a parent meant that discipline was a big deal, and his father wouldn't put up with disrespect or disobedience. When Rick was a teenager, like many teens, one time Rick remembers talking back to his dad using bad language, which was immediately off limits for the elder Harrison, who was known for being strict, and he responded by punching Rick. The confrontation may seem harsh by today's standards, but Rick has said that it was part of his dad's old school way of parenting. The old man believed in teaching respect and responsibility, even if it meant being tough. Rick later admitted that while his dad's methods were harsh, the punch was shocking, but it served as a wake-up call and taught him a valuable lesson about respect, especially within the family. In the early 1980s, the Harrison family moved to Las Vegas, Nevada in search of better opportunities. In 1988, Rick and his father co-founded the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. At first, the business was small, but Rick's keen eye for valuable items and friendly personality helped it grow steadily. Decades later, the shop became the center of Pawn Stars, launching Rick and his family into fame. International fame, every business has bad days. Rick's did in 2012. He was involved in a lawsuit that brought bad attention to his business. The lawsuit was filed by Vietnam veteran Daniel Callahan, who said he was hurt after being physically removed from the pawn shop. Daniel said the fight started when he tried to sell a rifle there, and he said he got into a heated argument with staff and was then put in a chokehold. Daniel Harrison said that Rick and his father hurt him physically and caused him stress during the incident. He also demanded $20,000 from Harrison. However, Rick's son Corey Harrison denied these claims in an interview, saying that neither Rick nor his grandfather were there during the fight. Instead, Corey said that staff had to step in when Daniel lost it and brandished a gun, making the situation potentially dangerous for everyone. Corey said Daniel was yelling for the owner while the store was packed with about 4,000 customers. To deal with the chaos, Corey defended the staff's decision to remove Daniel, saying it was done for everyone's safety. The lawsuit brought bad press to the pawn shop, but it's not clear if the case was eventually settled or thrown out. Rick didn't say anything about what happened, so his son had to talk about it in public. Richard was more than just a parent and business partner. Richard's sharp wit, strict discipline, and no-nonsense approach to life and business helped shape Rick's personality and the success of the gold and silver pawn shop. They had a close family bond as well as a strong professional bond from years of working together. In 2018, Rick faced one of the saddest times in his life when his father died of complications from Parkinson's disease. Richard's illness had been getting worse over time, but his death still hit him hard. People want to know more about your family now that your father has died. Yes, my dad was a great guy. He served in the Navy for 20 years and was a great father. I had epilepsy as a child, but he didn't treat me any differently because of it. When I was 12, it was 5:30 a.m. on a Saturday, and I had to get out of bed and get my nail polished because my dad wouldn't buy apartments unless there was a condemned sticker on every door. Rick had to navigate. Rick was both sad and responsible for keeping Richard's legacy alive after his death. The void Richard left was felt both personally and professionally. Fans of Pawn Stars mourned with Rick because the dynamic father-son relationship had been a big part of the show's appeal. For Rick, losing his father meant taking on a bigger role as the leader of both the family and the business. He often shares the lessons Richard taught him in order to honor his memory while dealing with the weight of such a profound loss just a few years ago. After his father died, Rick got into a painful legal battle with his mother, Joanne Harrison. Joanne sued Rick, saying that he had kept her out of several family businesses and trusts, such as the main pawn shop, G&S Pawn Shop Harrison Properties, and Joe Rich. She also said that Rick had cut and eventually stopped the monthly payments she was getting, which had been $25,000 until early 2020 and then dropped to $20,000 before stopping altogether in March 2020. Joanne also said that Rick had taken control of things that were legally hers, like a safe with cash and silver, and that he hadn't given her any paperwork about the shop's finances. She also said that Rick had stopped her from accessing the family trust, which had about $500,000 worth of silver and at least $100,000 in cash before her husband died. In response to the lawsuit, Rick said that he thought his mother was being manipulated by others for their own benefit. He rejected the accusations and said the case got a lot of attention because of how famous the family was and how serious the accusations were. While Rick Harrison may be famous because of Pawn Stars, he is still a businessman at heart and sometimes struggles with the fame that he gained. His rise to international fame brought him new opportunities, but also big problems, like running a business while being watched by millions of people. One of the biggest problems Rick has to deal with is criticism about how the pawn shop does business. Some former customers and viewers have said that some deals on Pawn Stars were unfair or that items were undervalued to make money. But most of these claims are based on hearsay and not solid evidence. The accusations add to the public's view of Rick, who has to carefully manage his reputation while running a business that deals with haggling, negotiating prices, and valuing rare items. Different ideas about what is fair, and Rick has admitted that it's hard to please everyone. Rick's political views have also gotten a lot of attention. His public support for conservative causes has split his fans, with some praising his honesty and others criticizing him for mixing politics with entertainment. He hasn't changed his mind about his beliefs, but he knows that sharing his political views can turn off some fans. Finally, the relentless nature of fame has changed Rick's life. The constant presence of cameras and public interest in his personal life has invaded his privacy, making it hard for him to balance his professional persona with his private self. In January 2024, Rick lost his 39-year-old son, Adam Harrison, to a substance overdose. Authorities say that a toxic mix of chemicals in his body caused his death. This terrible loss happened at a time when Rick was already having personal and legal problems. But nothing could have prepared him for this. No one could have prepared Rick for the grief of losing his son. He wrote a touching post about it on Instagram. Determined to turn his grief into action, Rick became a vocal advocate for substance awareness and prevention. Using his platform, he has worked tirelessly to bring attention to the dangers of toxic chemicals and the urgent need for better resources to fight these situations. Rick's advocacy is both a tribute to his son's memory and a mission to keep other families from experiencing similar heartbreak. Rick has had a lot of success in his career, but his love life has been very unstable. He has been married 3 times, but all of them ended in the same way. They got divorced in 2011 after 10 years of marriage for reasons that have never been fully explained. His first marriage was to Kimberly Harrison, with whom he had 2 children, Corey and Adam. Like many marriages, Rick's main focus was on growing his pawn shop business and expanding his media presence with Pawn Stars. Kimberly may have felt neglected or strained by his busy schedule. The couple's divorce was friendly, and Rick kept in touch with his children after the separation. After his first divorce, Rick stayed involved in the lives of his children, especially Corey, who would go on to appear with him on Pawn Stars. Rick's second marriage was to Tracy Harrison, whom he married in 2013. Their relationship seemed to start off well, but it ended in divorce after only a few years. The details of their divorce are mostly private, but like his first marriage, it seemed to be affected by Rick's busy work schedule. After the divorce, Tracy Harrison stayed out of the public eye, and the details of their separation were never fully shared with the media. However, Rick has often talked about how painful his second divorce was. He rethought his life and relationship choices after his second divorce, but it also left him emotionally worn out. Rick's third marriage was to Dean, who became his wife in 2013. Their relationship seemed to start off strong, and People magazine even published only their wedding pictures. Unfortunately, it also ended in divorce. The details of their split have not been made as public as his other marriages, but reports say that their relationship had its problems. Dina and Rick's divorce was finalized in 2020. They didn't have any children together, which may have made the emotional turmoil of their breakup less intense than Rick's previous divorces, but it was still a hard time for him. I got a job here and started buying and selling things. I had always been buying and selling things. My dad had a small coin shop. I wanted to open a pawn shop, but I went to City Hall and they told me I couldn't get a punch off in Las Vegas. I asked them why they were pulling out the city code so they could give me one more pawn license. Rick's marriages and divorces have probably helped him grow as a person, both in his personal life and in his public life. After a lot of personal and professional problems, Rick has decided to focus on his health and start a new chapter in his life. The Pawn Stars star recently shared pictures of his happiness with his new partner, nurse Angie Pushkin, who lives in Las Vegas. Rick and Angie met a few months ago and are now engaged. Their friendship quickly turned into a loving relationship, and they recently took a trip to Europe to celebrate Angie's birthday. They captured happy moments in Paris by drinking champagne in front of the Eiffel Tower and lighting birthday candles together. Their adventures have gone beyond Europe, with highlights like a helicopter ride to the top of the Eiffel Tower, going to an Adele concert, and exploring London. Despite his personal losses, Rick has shown great strength by continuing to run the Gold professionally. Rick is still working in the pawn business and entertaining fans on Pawn Stars. Pawn Stars' 23rd season will soon air, featuring interesting items like a limited edition Nike Raft and a Brickland SV1 Dot. Rick's new relationship with Angie has brought him moments of light and joy during a difficult time. Their shared experiences point to a hopeful future as Rick balances his work obligations with a renewed focus on his own happiness.